Don't be fooled by those magnificent feasts and shining armor in the movies. If you have a time machine and are thinking of visiting the Middle Ages, here are 10 solid reasons to cancel your ticket. 1. Medicine. Want a cure? We're going to hurt you. Medieval medicine was often more terrifying than the disease itself. Doctors believed the body consisted of four fluids: blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm, and that illnesses were caused by an imbalance of these fluids. The cure for almost every ailment was draining blood. Do you have a fever? Let it bleed. Feeling dizzy? Let it bleed. Barbers were also surgeons. Those famous red and white barber poles actually represent bloody bandages. If you had a migraine or epilepsy, the doctor would think you had evil spirits or pressure inside your head. The solution? Drilling a hole in your skull with a drill-like tool without anesthesia. Surprisingly, some people survived this procedure, though their pain likely didn't go away. If you needed surgery, they would strap you to a table and give you a piece of leather to bite on. The risk of infection was so high that even a simple fracture could result in gangrene and amputation. 2. Hygiene. Bathing kills. We know about germs today, but they believed in the miasma theory. They thought diseases spread through bad-smelling air. It was believed that hot water opened the pores, allowing disease to enter the body through these openings. That's why people didn't wash for months or even years. Even the nobility would only take a full bath a few times a year. There was no detergent to wash your clothes. Do you know what the strongest cleaner was? Stale urine. Thanks to the ammonia inside, it removes stains. Imagine the washerwomen's hands constantly in contact with urine. Body lice and fleas were so common that they were considered a natural part of life. Picking lice out of each other's hair was seen as a social activity. 3. Toilets and sanitation. Look up while walking in the street. You might need to hold your nose when imagining medieval cities like London or Paris. Houses didn't have toilets, they had chamber pots. In the mornings, these pots were emptied out the window onto the street. If you heard the warning, "Guard loo," you had seconds to run. Sometimes waste would be dumped on you without any warning at all. There were no sidewalks, no sewage systems. When it rained, the streets turned into a toxic swamp of mud, animal dung, and human waste. Wearing long skirts or cloaks wasn't just fashion, it was to prevent the filth from splashing onto you. Places like London Bridge had houses on them, and their toilets opened directly into the river. Can you guess what fell onto the people passing by in boats below? 4. The Black Death, Plague, a rehearsal for the apocalypse. Between 1347 and 1351, Europe experienced the greatest catastrophe in its history. The disease started with egg-sized black swellings, buboes, in the groin and armpits. Then came internal bleeding, vomiting blood, and unbearable pain. Death usually occurred within 2 to 3 days. People thought this was a punishment from God. Cults called flagellants wandered the streets whipping themselves to ask for God's forgiveness. No quarantine. They didn't know the disease was transmitted by fleas on rats. Because they killed cats, believing them to be servants of the devil, the rat population exploded and the plague spread even faster. Whatever happened to humanity was due to these superstitions and ignorance. 5. The legal system. Let God decide. In modern law, you are innocent until proven guilty. In the Middle Ages, the logic was, we will torture you, and if you are innocent, God will save you. If someone was suspected of being a witch, their hands were tied and they were thrown into the water. If they sank, they were innocent, but usually drowned. If the water rejected them and they floated, they were a witch and were burned at the stake. In both cases, the result was death. What an incredible dilemma. The accused had to walk while holding a red-hot iron. Their wounds were bandaged and checked 3 days later. If the wound had started healing, they were innocent. If it was infected, they were guilty. In an environment without hygiene, it was impossible for that wound not to get infected, of course. Yes, you heard that right. If a pig attacked a child, that pig would be arrested, taken to court, assigned a lawyer, and if found guilty, executed by hanging. 6. Serfdom. Bonded servitude to the land. Your chance of being a knight, like in the movies, isn't even 1%. There is a 90% chance you would be a peasant. You could never leave the village where you were born without the Lord's permission. If you ran away, you were considered an outlaw. You had to give part of the wheat you produced to the Lord and part to the church as a tithe. What remained was barely enough, or not enough, to keep your family alive. Your house consisted of a single room. There was no insulation. To keep warm in the winter, you would bring your cows and pigs inside the house, so you slept in a barn with your family. 7. Food culture, starvation, and poisoning. While swans and peacocks appeared on the tables of the rich, the situation for the common people was heartbreaking. The main food for the poor was bread. However, stored grain would get covered in ergot fungus due to dampness. This fungus had a chemical structure similar to LSD. As people ate the bread, they would hallucinate, suffer convulsions, and contract a disease called St. Anthony's fire. Water sources were so polluted that drinking water was practically suicide. Therefore, everyone, including children, drank low-alcohol beer, ale, or wine, even at breakfast. Imagine a society wandering around slightly drunk all day. If the harvest was bad one year, there were no supermarkets. People would try to survive by boiling and eating tree bark, grass, and sometimes even shoe leather. 8. Dentistry. Torture in the barber's chair. Medieval skeletons show that teeth were in very poor condition. It was believed that toothaches were caused by an invisible worm living inside the tooth. The treatment? Sticking hot needles into the tooth or applying acidic plants to burn the worm out. If the tooth couldn't be saved, which was usually the case, the barber would take his pliers and pull with all his might. A broken jawbone was a common complication. When the rich lost their teeth, they used real human teeth purchased from dead soldiers or the poor, or cow bones as prosthetics. 9. Security. You could die at any moment. There was no police force. Going out at night meant risking death. Going from one city to another was a huge risk. Forests were full of bandits. Highwaymen would rob and kill you, and your body might not be found for weeks. Villages were frequently looted due to endless wars between kings. When soldiers entered a village, they would burn your house, steal your crops, and harm your family. Rape and pillage were considered the natural spoils of war. There were night watchmen in cities, but they were few in number. Theft, murder, and brawls were everyday occurrences. 10. Dancing with death. A short life. Living in the Middle Ages was a war against statistics. 30% of children died before reaching age 1, and 50% died before age 10. You would lose half your family while they were still children. For women, giving birth was as dangerous as going to war. Due to a lack of hygiene and medical knowledge, Puerperal fever was very common. Cesareans were only performed to save the baby after the mother had died. When it is said average life expectancy was 35 years, people think everyone died at 35. Actually, if you survived childhood, you could see 50 or 60. But a 35-year-old person would be as worn out as a 60-year-old person today. Teeth fallen out, joints riddled with rheumatism, and skin scorched by the sun. So the next time you feel like complaining about a slow internet connection, a traffic jam, or a cold coffee, just pause for a second. Take a deep breath and remember, you aren't being treated with leeches. You aren't drinking beer just to survive thirst, and your dentist actually believes in painkillers. We often romanticize the past with stories of brave knights and beautiful castles. But the reality? It was a world of pain, filth, and darkness. The truth is, we won the ultimate lottery of history just by being born in this era. So tonight, when you take a hot shower or simply lay down in a warm, bug-free bed, be grateful. If this video made you appreciate your modern life, please hit that like button and subscribe for more historical deep dives. And tell me in the comments, which one of these 10 facts terrified you the most? Was it the doctors or the hygiene? I read every comment. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay clean, and I'll see you in the next video. Happily in the 21st century.